So you found the skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jackson with Jackson. This is Jackson with Jackson 26. Christians will hate this video. Not clickbait. In case you're wondering, it is in fact a bit of a reference to Answers in Genesis' new video thumbnail and title style, where rather than telling you anything about what the video is going to be about, they just give you some clickbaity thing like, atheists will convert after watching this, or Christians, can you believe this teacher said this? And it's like, I don't know what any of this means, and it's completely uncompelling to me. But apparently it works, because they actually, like, you can check their metrics. They actually did get a bit of a boost in their viewership when they started making the cringiest, lamest clickbait, because clickbait works. People wouldn't do it if it didn't, which is...
Sure does.
It's sad, but also I feel like my audience is mostly not the kind of people who would fall for, like, really super obvious clickbait. So, I don't know. Also, I want to say a special thank you to Rossina Keller, who just joined the membership at the level of Tetrapod. And, of course, Fits of Rage, who's been a member for 5 months and is at the Amnio level, says, had to start drinking early while catching up on the Rob Carter video, so gotta get the drink counter going with an AIG as a bag of dicks emoji and a Godzilla and a Mothra, so yes, we will take a drink for that. Alright, well first, let's check in with my co-host here, Good Jackson, and then we'll get into the drinking rules, and then we'll get into whatever it is Circleface has for us. Jackson. Good Jackson.
Hit me.
How are you today?
I'm doing alright. I had work. Now I'm here.
Yeah, that sounds about right. My day was mostly filled with getting a video done. It's actually uploaded, but I have not posted it to Patreon or my members-only community section. So that should be done. I'm hoping to do that not too long after this, or maybe tomorrow morning, depending on how tired I feel after this. So if you're a member or a patron, you should be expecting to have a new video up for early access either tonight or tomorrow. It is a Roger video, and it has my most disgusting thumbnail ever.
It's true.
Yeah, it's
I've had the misfortune of previewing it.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Keller Atelian, who's been a member for 17 months and is at the Amnio level, says, who cares about Bad Jackson? We're here for Mr. Roundface with a Godzilla. And I mean, look, I do seem to genuinely enjoy Roundface. Also, Rosana Keller for $49.99. Thank you so much. Says, Clara is the timeless child. She stole a TARDIS and ran away from Gallifrey. I mean, that is true. That is the story of Clara. She, like, shattered her own being through time to help the Doctor in all of his carnations, and we get a nice little throwback to her helping William Hartnell's first Doctor, often on Gallifrey, which was interesting. Yeah. I don't like all of the crazy retcons they've done, like, the Doctor isn't really a Time Lord or anything, but that one I was like, alright, that seems fair. Like, she's been in the background for this whole time. Okay, fine, whatever, that's okay by me. So, apparently it's Master Wheat. Are you Master Wheat now?
I mean, if people call me that, I will call them a big nerd.
Okay.
So,
well, I mean, I am a big nerd, so, like, I don't know what to do with that.
that's fair, I guess. I can't stop you then. You're immune to my attacks.
Yeah, it's just like, it's like, hello, have you met me? I run a science channel on YouTube.
And I mean, you know, I don't have much room to talk. I also run a science channel.
Exactly. You know? Yeah, it's just like, okay, sure. I'm a nerd. Oh no, I'm a nerd! Yeah, everyone knows that. Also, I play tabletop role-playing games, like, all the time. Like,
I just call people nerd because it's funny to see their reaction. They're like, you're calling me a nerd in the year of our Lord 2023? Like, what do you do?
Yeah. Alright, so we are here to talk about Bad Jackson and Circleface, and Circleface is interviewing Bad Jackson. Now, I'm calling him Circleface not as, like, a dig, just as a descriptor. He's a very round face, and, like I said, I actually kind of like the guy. He's got that, like, NPR voice where he could tell you anything, like, Yesterday there was a terrorist attack in Karachi and 453 orphans were killed. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's okay.
That tracks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you just go about your day because it was told to you in such a nice, gentle way.
Lulled you to sleep, if you will.
Yeah, basically. So while we do that, though, we have a few drinking rules. And now, first thing I want to say is, if you decide to play along with the drinking rule game, one, please be aware you do not need to use alcohol. You are perfectly okay to use water, juice, soda, lemonade, a vape pen, nothing at all, tea, coffee, I don't care. You do whatever is fun for you, and also if you do decide to participate using an intoxicating substance, please be careful, please know your limits, pace yourself, and do not do anything stupid like operate heavy machinery, drive a car, fly an airplane, text your ex.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. None of these things are a good idea. Also, Dapper Dinosaur and Jackson Wheat, we accept neither liability nor responsibility for your poor choices as a result of playing along and not being careful. You have been warned. This is a play at your own risk game. Goop23 for $2 says, new AIG CEO is railing against wokeism. Of course he is. With an AIG as a bag of dicks emojis, we'll take a drink. Yeah, that's not surprising. I think that's a big part of why he was hired, because AIG has really started to shift heavily into the culture wars, and they're doing a lot less of the actual science stuff. Basically, it seems like their current MO is like, hey, how mean can we be to anyone who isn't, like, straight or cis? Like really, how mean can we actually get away with being? And it turns out the answer is very. Yeah, they can be very mean and get away with it. Although I do have it on good authority that despite the fact that they have a religious requirement to work at the Ark Encounter, and the fact that there is a behavior code that you have to follow on and off the job, that people have had sort of like running contests with just how much gay stuff they can get away with on the grounds of the Ark Encounter.
That's great.
I am very, very confident that place has it's got a hoppin' LGBTQ scene, is what I'm saying.
Just like, everybody talks about like, the Chick-fil-A people or the owner said this against the gays. I have never seen so many gay people working at a place than Chick-fil-A.
I mean, yeah, the actual franchises do not actually all have like hiring managers and owners who share that that view.
Exactly.
So, actually, when I was still in Massachusetts, during June, there was like the Chick-fil-A at the mall had all sorts of like Pride Day or not Pride Month like specials going.
Nice.
Yeah. So, although a lot of them were on the honor system, because sometimes it was like, oh hey, if you're a member of the LGBTQ community and you come in with your partner, you can get like 10% off. And it's like, how are you checking any of that? Yeah, it's just honor system. Okay, that's fair. Yeah. Anyway, so let's go over the drinking rules, because we're not here really to complain about AIG's horrible regressiveness. We're here to talk about Dr. Charles Jackson and his nonsense. So, we will take a drink, as you have already seen, if anyone puts into the chat via Super Chat or Membership Milestone Chat anything to the effect that AIG are a bag of dicks. Now, this is primarily because of their historical use of copyright claiming of videos that are using their material from fair use, including clips from themselves using clips of other copyrighted works under fair use doctrine, which is always my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing to get copyright claimed on a fair use of a video that itself is relying on fair use. That's just chef's kiss. Mwah. Perfect. Anyway, we will also take a drink if anyone uses in a Super Chat or Membership Milestone Chat any of the kaiju emojis, which include Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah. To get access to those, you do have to be a channel member. There's a join button below the video that will allow you to become a channel member. If you do, you'll get access to my videos early, usually like 4 to 5 months early. I'm creeping up on getting up to like 6 months early, because I'm trying to... what I'd really like to do is get to like where I have a year's worth of content and then start doing 2 uploads a week instead of 1, right?
Yeah.
That's my long-term goal. Right now, I'm still a good ways away from that, but hey, we're getting there. Also, if anyone gifts memberships, we will take a drink for each membership gifted until we get to the point where it's like, okay, someone gifted like 30 or more. I'm just gonna finish this drink that I have, go get another one, and then continue on while also adding the appropriate number to the drink counter, because we do have a drink counter. As you can see, we've already had 3 instances. Now, most of our drink causes are not actually from the audience, although Farrakis, I'm not sure. Please let me know exactly how to pronounce that name if you care about me mispronouncing your name. For $10, says AIG is a sack of Texas Supreme Court justices. Ooh, yeah, okay, we'll take a drink for that. Yeah, I love the whole oh yeah, there's a health and threat to life of the mother exception for the Texas abortion ban. It's like, okay, what about sepsis? And they're like, no, sepsis isn't a threat to your life. What are you talking about? And it's just like, that's a cause of death. Sepsis is definitely a cause of death. What are you talking about? That's not a risk to the life of the mother. Okay, sure. Okay, yeah. Of course, the other thing is, quite frankly, if you put in a caveat for threat to the health of the mother, that's basically all pregnancies. So anytime someone's like, oh, well, I would make exceptions for that, they're mostly lying to you. All pregnancies are risky. So then they should all be allowed, right? Except that's not what they want. So yeah, that's just a sop to their not quite as hardline pro-life type people. And of course, by pro-life, it's a little bit weird since in this case, the woman who's suing will definitely not be able to have that baby as a live, baby, because it's already dying. And there's a fair chance that she'd die if she were allowed, or she were forced to carry that baby to term. Luckily, she is leaving Texas and will be getting the abortion that will almost certainly save her life will not in any way prevent or change anything about the outcome for the fetus. Tiri Cycron Crystals are the oldest rocks. Ron, a member for 6 months, says if it's not a threat if God wants her dead. Jeez, with a Mothra. Yeah, well, okay. Okay, so if the creationist in question, usually Charles Jackson, but it might be Circle Face, unlikely, but maybe, says something that's too stupid and we just have to take a drink, we will take a drink. If he says something that's actually factually accurate and is not just a quotation, we'll take a drink. If he tells a joke that doesn't land or a story that didn't happen, we'll take a drink. So for instance, if he pretends to have had a conversation with a UC Berkeley professor on some airplane in which the UC Berkeley professor can't articulate anything about any scientific model at all, and then, Kenthoven, or not Kent, well, in this case it would be Charles Jackson, but whatever. This was developed for Kenthoven. And then, that guy converts to Christianity, or the whole plane stands up and claps for Jesus or something. Yeah, we'll take a drink for that. Astro Ryu for $4.99 says, I'd argue that the state of Texas officials are much larger bags of suspiciously shaped rocks than AIG. Both definitely are bags, though. So first we'll take a drink. It's hard to say, right? Because the state of Texas officials have a direct impact on a huge number of people. But I think that people at AIG might actually end up having a bigger but more indirect impact on a larger number of people, right? Because they're a big part of sort of the intelligentsia of the same movements that are currently threatening the lives of women in Texas. Because the thing is, look, if you don't want people to terminate pregnancies because you think that that is in fact an immoral act, there aren't a whole lot of legal options that don't just result in, frankly, just dead women, period. And I don't think that's a great option. However, what you could do is you could just, argue persuasively that maybe people shouldn't do that in elective instances. And if you're not persuasive enough, then it sounds like it's a you problem and not an anyone else problem. I don't know. That's an option, at least. Err on the side of freedom, like all the the AIG types like to talk about, and then try to use, your moral persuasiveness as some way to convince people to act the way that you want them to, since, you're not really in charge of their lives. I don't know. That's just an option. This is not a politics show. Although, it is a show where we're against, generally speaking, needless human suffering. We're generally not okay with that. I mean, at least that's my stance. What about you, Charlie, Good Jackson? Are you like a misanthrope who's just like, yeah, all the suffering?
I mean, some people I would be okay with a little suffering, but most people generally, nah, probably not.
Okay, that seems fair. Okay, so there's also Trojan source. If Charles Jackson cites a source and we check the source, and not only does it fail to support his contention, but it actively contradicts his contention, it's a Trojan source. We'll take a drink. There's also ad hominid. Ad hominid is when the bones of the Lucy specimen of Australopithecus afarensis are confused for the only source of knowledge about any wider taxon to which she belongs. So, for instance, if someone says, well, why would they make this model of Australopithecus with human-like feet when we don't have Lucy's feet? That's ad hominid because, hey, guess what? We have other Australopithecus feet. So, there you go. Now, that can only happen once per stream, because once it starts happening, it usually is then constant. So, let's see. Farrakis? I'm not sure again. Says, please accept this donation as an apology for derailing us. Farrakis. I think that's Farrakis is what we're going with. I will try my hardest to remember that. That was for $5, by the way. If I do not, please just correct me again. If I really don't get it, the International Phonetic Alphabet is usually the most reliable way to get me to pronounce something correctly, because, I mean, it's a fairly unambiguous system for encoding the sounds that human speech organs can make, which is the goal of it. Let's see. There's also a prediction. If it's not clear what's going to happen next, but either Jackson or I can make an accurate prediction, we'll take a drink for that. And then, of course, if Mothra or Godzilla come by audibly, we will take a drink. Also, Roasting Keller for $4.99, there you go, says, what was it AIG's Ken Ham videos that converted Jeffrey Dahmer or Kent Hovind's? I can't find any source other than Kent for the latter. So I know that Jeffrey Dahmer did become a Christian, and the kind of Christian he became was the young earth variety. I'm actually kind of suspicious that it was young earth creationist content that converted him to Christianity. I think it was more likely that he generally wanted some kind of emotional comfort about his existence and potential afterlife. Because one of the things that you get the impression of from like the trial proceedings and whatnot is that he didn't like himself all that much. And he wanted to find a way to fix that while he was in prison. And so I think that's the big reason that he ended up converting to Christianity. I don't think it actually directly has anything to do with young earth creationism. I think the young earth creationism was a subsequent thing that tied into the kind of Christian he ended up becoming. But again, all of that is conjecture. I am not a Jeffrey Dahmer expert, a biographer. I'm not even someone who, spends any significant amount of time looking into that kind of thing. Strawberry Vein for $50. Thank you very much. Says, sorry for the long absence. My sleep has been consistently perfectly lining up with all your streams. So here's a big one to make up for all those super chats I missed. Well, thank you very much. Actually, yesterday, I was pretty out of it, so I know how you feel. I ended up with a 28 or so hour cluster headache starting yesterday morning at like 5 a.m. It was a rough day. I definitely missed things I was supposed to do. There was a whole bunch of stuff I wanted to do that just didn't get done. Instead, all I did was basically build a ammo manufacturing plant in Satisfactory off the coast of like the Spire coast. So, yeah, just went out into the water and spent most of the day slowly making something that would make ammo for me automatically in Satisfactory. Because it was all my brain could do, and because it's all the math is like, there's a hotkey to bring up a calculator in-game, so I didn't actually have to do any of the math myself. I just had to know how to input the math, and that's pretty easy for me. So that's all I basically had the mental energy to do, which is unfortunate, because there was a whole bunch of other stuff I wanted to do. Anyway, Jackson, have I missed anything? Oh, wait, Godzilla Mothra might come by audibly. I think I might have said that. If they do, we take a drink. Jackson, do you think I've missed anything?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I did miss that if good Jackson, laughs during my time explaining the drink triggers, that is usually itself a drink trigger. But you didn't, so good job.
Huzzah.
All right. So Circle Face here was just telling us about a personal experience he'd had where a friend of his went to college and was exposed to things like Neil deGrasse Tyson and
Dun, dun, dun.
science, basically, is what it boils down to, and then left Christianity. To which I say, well, okay, if the goal is to keep people being Christians, I guess you could just lie harder to them. Or you could do the thing that young earth creationists are generally loath to do, which is decouple the necessity of science denial to be a Christian, which is the method I would prefer, because while I frankly don't really care whether or not you're a Christian, I do care if you're a science denier, because science denialism is per se dangerous to society as a whole. Whereas I don't really think that believing that Jesus is the second person of the Trinity and the Son of God who died to cleanse your sins and rose on the third day is on its own dangerous. Now, there are very many dangerous views that come along with that in certain circumstances, but not all of them. So yeah, the bare aspect of being a Christian, I don't particularly care about. But science denial, yeah, I care about that. Oh, and Silent Tetrapod just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Thank you very much, Silent Tetrapod. That is very generous of you. You guys are going to make me finish this drink before we even get started. But Liz D, Robert Adset, Ian Houston, DeBoop, and is that it? And Quiet Fern, 1027. Thank you very much. Let's get 5 drinks in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I am drinking some cola and Kraken rum. So there you go. In case people wonder. All right. Where's my... There we go. Here we go.
I want to ask this very important question. How can a Christian reach a former Christian student who's rejected Christianity because they've accepted the evolutionary theory?
I mean, my response, if I were someone who was currently trying to say, like, oh yeah, we got to keep those numbers up, right? We don't want rookie numbers in Christianity. We want lots of Christians. My response would be to say, like, point out all of the churches and theologians who are not science deniers. That would be my go-to. What about you there, Good Jackson?
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
I mean, we have done that. Like, remember we had a talk online a while back.
Sure did.
But it was with this guy who had just sent in like his application to a was it a Baptist theological seminary? And so
the bank guy,
yeah. And so our response though was to point him to Christian resources that were affirming of science broadly.
Yeah.
So
like
like
biologos.
Exactly. Fits of Rage just gifted a Dapper Dinosaur membership, and it went to Carol Kinzer. Thank you very much. Let's take a drink. All right, so let's see what Bad Jackson has for us, because it's probably going to be lie harder.
Just be better at lying.
That is tough. Tyson is...
That's Neil deGrasse Tyson, is by the way. I still find it so cringy that I guess you guys can't see it, but I'll see if I can shift this around so you can see it. I mean, there we go. Yeah, if you look here, this is how he's listed on like the little marquee is Doctor of Science Education. What is it? Oh yeah, Master of Science Education and Mensa member. Like, that is the cringiest thing. I am of the opinion that Mensa is a club for people who like to sniff their own farts because they're in Mensa.
Yeah.
A very good speaker, a very good communicator, a skilled teacher. I respect his teaching skills. But those kind of veiled, it's like a knife under a handkerchief. I mean, that's a very veiled, thinly veiled honesty.
But is it very
approach.
veiled or is it thinly veiled? Which is it? It can't be both.
It's very
Is it
thinly.
like-
It's very thinly
It's
veiled.
translucently veiled. I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, it's very thinly veiled. So it's like one of those sheer fabrics that you can mostly see through, and then there's a dagger under it. It's
Like I think you have a dagger, sir.
it's like no.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
It's just, this is just
I can kind of see it.
this is just my see-through silk handkerchief. In fact, it has a dagger print on it. Yes.
Blah blah blah.
No, I'm pretty
it's
sure it's a dagger.
No, sir. You misunderstand me.
Really a vicious attack
Oh,
on people that are listening to him.
so this is okay. I'm gonna take a drink because I'm gonna need a drink too. Oh, Vadim Slamovsky Redchenko says, "Is Bad Jackson besties with Orphan Red?" Orphan Red was for a while she was a prominent flat earther, and a producer of adult films is what I'm going to go ahead and say, who got into Mensa, so that was fun. So I'm going to take the drinks before we explain this, and I'll read the Broccoli Man super chat, and then we will explain it. So there's the drink. Broccoli Man for $5 says, I also had a cluster headache for over 24 hours a couple days ago. Jinx, you owe me negative $5. And that was their 5th super chat on the stream. So thank you very much, Broccoli Man. I appreciate it. I am sorry to hear about your cluster headache. They are not fun. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried that the cluster part is going to be coming into effect for the rest of the month, and that I will just have cluster headaches every few days for the next couple weeks or so. Hoping not, because they are unpleasant, and they make it very hard to get my work done. Anyway, so this is actually something that comes up a lot with Creationists, which is this idea that science communicators are viciously trying to attack their ideas. Neil deGrasse Tyson, I'm guessing, only has a vague idea that young Earth creationism exists as a movement. I don't know that for certain, but I do know that that's the position of most people in science, right? Like Jackson, when you tell people that like one of your hobbies is debunking young Earth creationists, and by people I mean like people in academia,
They give you a sort of light chuckle and say they're still around.
yeah, exactly, right? Like for the most part, the scientific community has largely forgotten that young Earth creationists exists.
Ask you why you're wasting your time.
Well, yeah, there is that too, right? Because ultimately, it's ultimately the same thing as like attacking flat Earth, right? Like, why? And the answer is because it spreads disinformation and lack of science trust and lack of science literacy, which are all dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason why. But yeah, but the thing is that science communicators are just trying to communicate science. If you think they're wrong about science, that's fine. I mean, I'm not going to tell you have to believe them. But what they're not doing is trying to sneakily destroy Christianity. I can pretty much guarantee you that Neil deGrasse Tyson does not go to sleep at night, and as he's drifting off to sleep, think, now how will I make sure there are fewer Christians tomorrow than there were when I woke up this morning? That's not what's happening right now. And I also saw the same thing where no, this isn't supposed to be an attack, right? Because I like the person I'm about to talk about. But Peter from Paleologos once responded to a PBS Eons episode about human evolution. And his main complaint was that what they said in the video did not demonstrate human evolution. And I privately told him, hey, that wasn't their goal, right? Their target audience isn't people who don't believe in evolution. They don't care about convincing people of evolution because their target audience is people who are interested enough in biology and biological sciences and paleontology to already know that evolution is true.
Mm-hmm.
They're not wasting their time trying to convince young Earth creationists. That's not their goal. Their goal is just to communicate about new papers about hominins. And to be fair to Peter, he took that on board, and I have not seen him repeat that particular, I'd say mistake, right? Because as you know, young Earth creationists go, Peter's a pretty stand-up guy. He is.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's several steps above the average young Earth creationist that we get, at least in my experience. But yeah, that's another example of that. Most scientists don't care to convince you of evolution because the evidence is all there, right? It's the same thing as when flat earthers are like, well, how come NASA doesn't put up a 24-hour webcam from the moon showing the Earth rotating under the moon? Or why? Or they'll ask for all sorts of other random crap from NASA that would allegedly convince them.
As though the flat earthers would believe it anyways. They're like,
Well,
it's just CGI.
There's that. One, you wouldn't believe it. The same thing is true for creationists. But two, NASA doesn't care about proving that the Earth is round. They're so far past that they just don't care. The same is true for real scientists. And for people who are like now science communicators who were doing real science. Because I would say that Neil deGrasse Tyson at this point has largely transitioned into being a science communicator and is not so much an active scientist, unless I'm just unaware of his recent publications in scientific literature.
You're right. It's mostly like, you know, popular level books, which are decent. They're pretty good, you know, summaries of physicists or physics stuff, and like, you know, TV appearances.
Which, by the way, is not a knock. I think that science communication, effective science communication, is a vitally important thing. And I think that, for the most part, he's doing a good job at that. I mean, I have my nitpicks here and there, but so what? I have nitpicks about everyone.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, Cosmos was really good. Really well animated. The stories were really good. Yeah, it was...
Some of them had a little bit of iffiness on the historical accuracy, but yeah, overall, I agree.
Well, you know, we're dealing with atheists here. They're always getting their history wrong.
That's not always true, although
sorry.
it is a theme that I've found with a lot of terminally online atheists, is that they're bad at history.
Yeah.
But anyway.
He has very good people skills. He presents very well. But the Cosmos series by Carl Sagan was not like that. Oh, it taught.
Sorry?
I said
because I just mentioned Cosmos. He just mentioned Cosmos. So.
Evolution. Sagan himself, who wrote the first, I think it was the first foreword to A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. He said, God is all through this book, mentioned all through the book. That was back when Hawking was a little more tolerant.
Okay, let's clear something up right quick. Sagan was an atheist. I just want to throw that out there. He was invited as the atheist to like at least one debate. I'm aware of at least one debate he was in. I think we're not gonna rewrite you know, Sagan's history here. It's not gonna happen.
Wait, we're not turning this into a Sagan biography show?
I mean, we're not gonna turn it into a Sagan misinformation show. It's really weird that, like, oh, God is all throughout this. I mean, people say the same thing about Hawking. You know, they're like, but he talked about God. Well, he talked about God as a potential hypothesis for the origin of the universe, but ultimately, again, was also an atheist. So
are we sure he wasn't an agnostic? Because I'm getting some reports that he may have been an agnostic.
At the very least, he did not believe in God.
Yeah, I think so, that's pretty hard to dispute, that he was definitely not a theist.
Right, okay, yeah. But yeah, so I mean, and like Sean Carroll does the same thing in The Big Picture, where like, you know, like, what is the explanation for the origin of the universe? Is God a potential explanation? Well, sure. And, you know, you have to weigh it with the alternatives. But you know, it's going to come inevitably into the conversation, especially if you're talking about, like, the origin of the universe for like, a lay audience.
We'll have to drink for Mothra, because Mothra came by. Yeah, no, I agree. All right, here we go.
People who believed in God. And Carl Sagan also said in Parade magazine that he was an atheist, but he understood, he thought it would be very comforting to believe in a God. He just couldn't do that. I mean, he was very...
Well, I mean, haven't you seen Contact? Like, in my mind, one of the points of Contact is not to, like, attack people for their sincerely held beliefs, right? Which is, I think, also, I mean, like, I don't know if I would say I don't know. I guess it depends on the belief. But, you know, kind of the point in the movie is, like, Jodie Foster's character can't demonstrate that she actually saw the aliens, which technically she did, and there was evidence, but it gets
well, the evidence was
buried.
a time difference between how long she seemed to be gone and how long her camera recorded
Right.
nothing but static for.
Right, and so like there's
Which is-
technically evidence that
It's evidence of something, but not directly
Right.
evidence of alien.
Right, and so yeah, I mean, yeah.
All right, I am, however, noticing that we have 56 likes and 114 concurrent viewers, which means that unfortunately, once again, I like less than half of you, half as well as you deserve. So hit that like button so I don't have to keep getting, bilboing you. I don't want to bilbo you. I want you guys to hit like. All right. Tessa Ranger says, in the book there was also sand in her pocket. I have not read the book.
Okay. I also haven't read it.
Because Jodie Foster wasn't in the book. That's not why.
I'm just not I don't particularly care for fiction. I have a Brief Candle in the Dark. I haven't read it yet, but I intend on in the near future. I have so many books on my shelf.
Strawberry Vein for $20 says, at Thanksgiving, my dad told me that evolution is a literal demonic conspiracy by, quote, the professors.
It's true.
I asked him, what's your evidence for that? And he just told me I've been brainwashed by the media, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Jeez.
It's true. I actually am. I'm going to do the blood ceremony at the end of this year, and join the conspiracy. Which, I mean, it's okay to talk about it here because, like,
we're all
we all already are part of the conspiracy, right? So
right,
it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Have they told you? Oh no, you're not getting you're getting your master's, right?
Right. Yeah. I'm not that high yet. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not way up there.
Well, I was going to ask you what kind of snake they wanted you to fight, if you knew that yet. But I mean, it's a little early for them to even consider what kind of snake they want you to fight.
It's true. I think at this low stage, it's gonna be something like a little monitor lizard or something.
Well, I mean, there's not normally a snake fight at the end of your master's degree. It's more of a PhD thing, right? After you defend your thesis and whatnot, then there's the snake fight, and then they take you in the back and induct you into the Church of Satan.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is true.
That is the sequence of events of you getting your PhD. You have your defense, snake fight, and then induction into the Church of Satan. That's how it goes.
Assuming you live through the snake fight.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, and that you've successfully defended your work.
Yeah.
Several steps of
They're
failure.
sticklers for methodology, let me tell you.
Oh yeah, including in the snake fight. No cheating. No bringing a mongoose. That's cheating.
He wasn't hateful just because someone believed me. I said,
I want to see the evidence of Neil deGrasse Tyson being hateful. Now, here's the thing, right? I will agree. Sometimes the things that Neil deGrasse Tyson did in his version of Cosmos that were blaming, say, the Catholic Church for some stagnation in science that largely didn't exist in the first place, and that also wasn't really the Catholic Church's fault, even if it did, were inappropriate, right? Like, he got the Galileo affair badly wrong in Cosmos. Okay, cool. But I don't particularly see that as hateful. I don't know. I wish...
Dapper,
what's up?
Aren't you aware of how much science we have not discovered because of the Dark Ages? Like, there's the graph. The graph shows
my goodness, the graph.
how many scientific discoveries we should have had by now. But the Dark Ages.
So first, there's no way to put technology on a y-axis. That's not how things work. Second,
it's not imaginative enough.
Yeah. Second, the idea of a Dark Ages is incredibly Eurocentric, because it turns out that for the rest of the world, that wasn't a particularly different time. In fact, in many places, that was a time of great scientific and academic advancement, especially in areas like the various caliphates in the Middle East and whatnot. But also, things were invented in Europe too, like better farming techniques, a way to actually get horses to do plowing instead of just oxen, which is nice because it vastly increases the number of animals that you can plow with, allowing you to plow more land. Eyeglasses were invented during the Dark Ages. And also, if you want to just look at, say, like how likely you were to die of war or famine or plague versus, like, say, the preceding antiquity and then classical periods, yeah, the Dark Ages were actually pretty good. time to be alive for the most part in Europe compared to the earlier times.
Next, you're gonna say like the modern synthesis isn't modern anymore or something crazy like that.
I mean, I don't know. As for you for $4.99 says AIG is a set of male-specific organs so large in number and size they could challenge Zeus's family reunion. Take a drink. I do find it interesting that sometimes you'll get like astronomy books, and they'll tell you how different like planets and moons got their names. And I read one that was explaining how the Jovian moons got their names, and it was like, oh, it was the names of people associated with Zeus. And it's like, that's technically true, but that association was a particular kind of association, shall we say. Yeah, it wasn't just, oh, this is the guy Zeus hung out with and played poker. It's like, no, that wasn't the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I wish I could, but I just can't, he said. And he blamed it on seeing what he thought were errors in the Bible at the time of his bar mitzvah, looking at errors in Genesis.
Wait, Neil deGrasse Tyson's bar mitzvah?
I think he's talking about Carl Sagan.
Okay, was Sagan Jewish? I don't know. I mean, I guess if he had a bar mitzvah, he would have had to been.
I think this was a bit about... I think he like transitioned to Carl Sagan.
All right, sure. I'd be pretty surprised if Neil deGrasse Tyson were Jewish. I'd be less... Well, I don't know if I'd be surprised. I would just be like, oh, okay. If Carl Sagan were. Because I don't know. I actually don't tend to look up the religious affiliation of scientists, because I usually don't care.
Where he thought there were errors between Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, which is another one of these little stories that are told, like the stories that Tyson was telling. But whenever the devil has tied someone's mind in knots, you have to go back and untangle the knots. This is what a psychologist would do if someone has been psychologically and emotionally in an unhealthy way been traumatized and transformed into something they're not.
I just want to remind everyone that when we're talking about being traumatized and transformed into something you're not, we're talking about the TV show Cosmos.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, as someone who's been on the internet since the 90s, that is not the most dramatic thing you can watch. I promise. Asteroid for $4.99 says, yeah, I named one of my characters Ganymede after the moon, not knowing that mythological context. They're trans, so it still works. Joke. I'm not sure how it works better or worse for them if they're trans. Either way, it's not a great story for modern sensibilities. It's a little cringy either way.
Torturously twisted. You have to go back and untwist the twistings. This wasn't like.
Ooh, Christine V, who's been a member for 6 months, is at the annual level, says the devil made me consider AIG a twisted knot of trouser snakes. Nice, we'll take a drink. But was it a Gordian knot of trouser snakes?
Like what the psychologist did in Good Will Hunting. It's not your fault. It's not your fault, son. It's not your fault. It's not.
I think you get very strange looks if you told like a biology student it's not your fault, as though that were going to get them to give up evolution.
Yeah. It's like, oh, hey, all that, actual scientific evidence that's contained in those myriads of papers, that's not your fault. Like, well, true.
I guess you're right.
Not sure how that's supposed to do anything to convert that person back to Christianity. Pizza Rate for $2 says, yep, the answer is lie to them better. With an attempt at the AIG is a bag of dicks, so we'll take a drink for it. Thank you very much. All right, here we go.
Untwisting the twistings that were put into someone. Now, the devil is the best twister of all.
All right, so note to self, don't play Twister with Satan. Yeah, because he'll win. He's the one who won't fall down. Got it. Yeah.
C.S. Lewis when he wrote the space trilogy. Let's see, it was Out of the Silent Planet. There was the planet where no one had ever fallen or sinned yet, and they
Yeah, it was Venus.
didn't even have a word in their language for bad. And so they just said that this Weston fellow who was visiting their planet was bent in the head. He was evil.
Farrakast for $5 says he's both gaslighting and teaching a masterclass on how to create a cult, deprogramming people from reason. I mean, yeah, basically. Goopdo3 for $5 says Shakespeare's Rosalind / Ganymede reads as very trans. That's why the name Ganymede fit. Hey, I mean, I probably wouldn't have made the Shakespearean connection there. That's fair. Look, I don't think you have to necessarily import all of the worst aspects of mythology in order to make a mythological illusion and have that be okay, right? I'm someone who's like okay with, say, taking the fun, cool parts of mythology into your entertainment and not including the more horrible, disgusting parts of mythology that are best left in the past. I'm A-okay with that. Strawberry Vein for $2 says, Bad Jackson's projection blows me away every time. Oh, yeah. I mean, look, it's like every single accusation is a confession. It's not quite like that, but it's not far off. All right, here we go.
Bent. They did know the word for straight and bent, and that was the only closest concept they had for the conception of evil. But to the pure, all things are pure. And so that's really sweet. But the devil is not pure at all, and he's very good at coming as an angel of light.
Remember, the question here is how to get someone to become a Christian again after they left Christianity as a result of learning science. Just wanted to point out that that's the question that he's been answering this whole time. I don't know how any of this is supposed to answer that question, but hey.
He plays on people's egos. You have special knowledge. You're above those Bible-believing people. You're smarter.
So, okay. I was a young Earth creationist. I don't remember, Jackson. Were you ever a young Earth creationist?
No.
Okay. So Eris Rose just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. They went to Daryl Frost, Meta Jetta, Javad Kusro, Michael Morales, and Gregory Nietzsky. Thank you very much. So let's take 5 drinks, and I'm gonna talk about my experience being a person who was, active in a church and then who stopped believing in creationism and became a evolutionist. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so this is something I did when I was roughly in high school, I believe. I don't exactly remember the timeline because I don't know if you guys know, but high school is a little while ago, just to put it mildly. But I do remember that at no point did I think that the people around me at church were stupider than me or less important than me or that I had been granted special knowledge, right? Like that wasn't a thing that I was ever thinking about, right? I was a kid who really liked science. I looked into science and I found out, oh, hey, yeah, this thing that I've been told doesn't really have any evidence for it and it's not true. It actually has all the evidence for it and it's almost certainly true. And then I was like, all right, well, I guess that's what I believe now. I didn't. Now, maybe there's a difference between me and some other people. I don't know. I didn't deconvert from Christianity in doing that. I'm not planning to tell you guys whether I ever did or not. You guys can just guess. And I noticed that different people guess in different directions on that one. That's always fun. I know different people who are convinced that I am a Christian and other people who are convinced that I'm not a Christian. And it's always fun to see who says what and why. So I think Sal Cordova is very convinced that I'm a Christian. I'm actually not entirely sure why he is, though. But whatever, it's fine. You can come to whatever conclusion you want about that. I'm not here to confirm or deny it. Anyway, but yeah, like I didn't think that way. about the other people at that church. Now, there were people who were professional creationists with PhDs in either adjacent or relevant fields whom I knew had to be lying to me, right? Because I knew they had to know at least most of this stuff. And so I lost a whole lot of respect for those people. But that's not just, the people at my church. That wasn't just like my friends at the youth group or, the people who brought the good food for the potluck or anything like that. Or like the people who came in with presents to give to disadvantaged youths or children, one of whose parents was in prison during that Christmas, and so we're likely not going to be getting as many gifts because we did that every year at that church, right? We had a big push to donate a whole bunch of toys and other gifts for kids, and it wasn't you don't get this gift unless you decide that, to love Jesus. It was just, look, if you're below this income threshold or you meet this, one of your parents is incarcerated thing and your other parent signed you up for this, you get a gift. There you go. Or like who were running a soup kitchen. Like, I didn't think that about any of these people. And it's still not how I think about the average layperson who is a creationist. I don't know about you, Jackson. Do you think that you have special knowledge that makes the average young earth creationist just dumb?
I don't think so.
Yeah, this is
I
not...
actually got asked that question in a professional setting recently.
Really?
So, no. Yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, that's... I mean, I guess I can't say that's no one's experience, right? Like, I'm sure there are some stuck-up people who are former young earth creationists out there. But it's not how I feel or felt when I stopped being a young earth creationist. I don't know. I still think of most of the people I grew up with as generally kind-hearted people who wanted to help people. And sure, part of the thing that they thought would help them would be becoming Christian, but it wasn't the only thing that they wanted to help them with. And I don't think they were particularly stupid. I think they were misled about young earth creationism, specifically. Sorry.
If you, like, convince yourself that people, like, aren't worth, helping or whatever, or they're just beneath you, it's like, that doesn't make you a better person,
No.
You don't score any points by looking down on other people. So.
All right.
You're better looking. You're richer. You're superior.
I guarantee you, I am not richer as a result of evolution or believing in evolution. Trust me.
Like those George Soros checks have not come through.
I'm gonna talk to him. George, what are you doing to me, man? I'm supposed to be helping you take over the world for I don't even know what the goal is, but yeah, you're supposed to be sending me money. Also, the USGS has yet to send me my first shill check. It's been years since I signed that contract. Maybe I'll have to switch over to NASA and start like defending the fake globe instead. Maybe that's what I'll have to do.
Probably better PR team.
Yeah, people not everyone knows what the USGS is. I still get people like the United States Gulf Society. I'm like, no. And then, of course, when I say it's the United States Geological Survey, they're like, that's not just a one-time thing that happened that one time. I'm like, no, it's like a whole department of the government. And they're like, well, that's a dumb name for it. I'm like, yeah, I know. Whatever. USGS always stiffing me on my shill checks.
They'd be surveying geologically.
They do that. I'll give them that.
No, you're more fit in survival of the fittest. You really?
I'm sorry. I'm just gonna take a drink for apparently being fit is just being better at science. Fitness is a measurement of reproductive success, not of intellectual prowess, right? Yeah. If being right about science leads to you having a higher reproductive output, then sure, it makes you more fit. But I am not convinced that it does. In fact, if anything, it seems like people like the Duggars, who are scientifically illiterate, have a whole lot more reproductive success than your average, say, middle-class scientifically literate person in the United States. But what do I know? I know that I can't figure out where my mouse is.
Really have to look at individual cases where is the breach in the wall of their walled city? And how do you go back and show them this was exploded? The wall was there because it was solid, because it was real. And now you've been convinced.
This is a very confusing metaphor to me.
To lower your defenses. Why? What?
The fact that you're calling young earth creationism and remaining a Christian as a result of young earth creationism your defenses, and the people that you think are attacking them are just scientists and science communicators, says a whole lot about the extremely cultish mentality that Bad Jackson has, right? Like, to a creepy extent. This is not normal rhetoric. This is cult behavior. And I don't think of most Christian churches as being a destructive cult in the same sense that, say, Scientology or the Jehovah's Witnesses or the Moonies are. Right? Like, I don't think that's the case. However, this is clearly, at the very least, cult adjacent, and I do think that Charles Jackson would prefer that Christians were more cult-like rather than less. But, yeah, I don't know. Good Jackson, you got anything to add to that?
Nope.
All right.
Did this to you? What did a little siren song, like in Lewis Carroll?
The evidence?
The time is.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? When I was like, a teenager looking into things like evolution and paleontology and whatnot, it was the evidence, right? I wasn't like, oh, if I believe in this evolution stuff, then I can go sin. I was the most boring square kid in high school. I didn't drink very often and go to a whole lot of crazy parties or anything.
Same.
Like, I mean, I had a little bit of drink here and there, but like I wasn't out doing all sorts of wild nonsense. I was square enough that like my bedroom had a door to the outside. I could just leave whenever I wanted. Very often. So, yeah. And my parents were trusting me enough to not go do that. Because for the most part, they were right. I wasn't interested in doing all that kind of stuff. And yet, yeah, no, it was the evidence. It wasn't my ability to sin that would be facilitated by rejecting young earth creationism. It wasn't a factor.
Come, the walrus said, to speak of many things. And he seduces the little oysters into coming up on shore with him and opening up their little shells. And now he's got them.
I love how this is just like Charles Jackson makes random literary allusions hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
He can eat them. And this deception is discovered way too late, maybe when you've denied Christ and now you're facing him after your death, or way late in it when now you're intellectually staked in this game, in this gamble, and you're embarrassed to back out of it. And so now you're ranting and raving like the professor did in God's Not Dead, when really, way back.
Yes, the Kevin Sorbo God's Not Dead professor, the most accurate and least strawman-y version of an atheist professor imaginable. The idea that anyone references that movie positively still baffles me. Because even the Christians that I know are generally not big fans of it if they've seen it, which most of them haven't, to be fair. But, like, I never met anyone personally who's like, oh yeah, God's Not Dead was great, made great points, love it.
Yeah, it was a terrible movie.
Just from a filmmaking standpoint, it's terrible. Like, you don't even have to care about the Christianity versus atheism thing. It's just
like
not a good movie.
6 different subplots all going on at once.
Yeah. So here's the thing, though. It is about break time. So we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to get I'm going to freshen up my drink. It's not quite gone, but it's time to fill it back up. And then we're going to come back. And I will say that we are actually pretty darn close to meaning that it is time to vote for another avatar, which is interesting because I was about to get through the last of the queue for the special avatars. So, I mean, hey, maybe we'll get there. Maybe we won't. Hard to say. We are, let's see, about 65 away from it, which is not that bad. All right, In the meantime, though, while I am gone, please enjoy the musical stylings of one Beethoven. And I will talk to you on the other side of the break. Okay, we are back. And first things first, I want to read a super chat from Vandalian1998 for $5 who says, I want to make an opposite scenario movie where there's a creationist teacher and the brave evolution knowing students stand up and explain things. That would be an interesting movie. I would check it out. Although if it's otherwise the same as God's Not Dead, then I don't even think that swap is going to fix it. But maybe. So, before we get right back into this, first, welcome back, Jackson.
Thank you.
You're
welcome back, Dapper.
Thank
to
you.
Your channel.
Yes. I mean, hey, that actually means something this time, because I missed the last Tuesday because my channel was just deleted, basically. Oh, well, it wasn't deleted, but it was unable to be used by me. Let's say that. So, but hey, that's something we've already talked about. So, this channel is almost entirely supported by the direct help from you guys, which is something that this month has been driven home harder than ever. I'm sure most of you know that earlier this month, I received a false community guidelines strike, and when I appealed it, it was upheld in almost as little time as it takes to watch the video as a whole, it was a 2-hour video, and it was upheld within 3 hours. And it was for supposed medical misinformation, which was not at all contained in that video. And eventually, the strike was erased by YouTube through both me and many of my fans bugging them over on Shitter, and I really do appreciate it. However, what that has driven home to me is just how fragile the YouTube channel is from the YouTube side of things, right? And so one of the things I'm asking is, if you like this channel and you can afford it, please see what you can do to maybe support it. It doesn't take much. Every single bit adds up, and I have a lot of great ways to help support the channel. First and foremost is the Patreon. The Patreon is one of the ways to help out the channel where I get the highest amount of benefit. I get about 90 cents on the dollar for everything that comes in via Patreon. We have tiers starting as low as $1 a month, and you can go as high as $100 a month if you want to. There's also a 15% discount if you go annually instead of monthly. So if you want, for less than $11, you can be a patron for a year. Now, if you're a patron at all, you get early access to my scripted videos. You get access to the Discord server that's just for supporters. It's a pretty good deal, in my opinion. So, and I will be talking about the, well, I'll just drink for it right now. Fade to Gray has just gets 1 Dapper Dinosaur membership, and it went to Noram Deputz. I think I pronounced that correctly. We'll take a drink. And DM Wing, who's been a member for 18 months and is at the Amniote level, sends a Godzilla, Mothra, and Ghidorah emoji and says, membership benefits, and a drink emoji. So we'll take a drink. Thank you very much. So there's also the channel membership. There's a join button below this. If you do that, you get access to all these cool emojis. You get a badge after your name. Your name goes green. You also get access to the Discord server. You also get early access to the videos. Starting at the $5 on both the Patreon and the memberships, you can start getting your names in the credit, or your name in the credits. And I try to make it as good a proposition as possible. There will be a new video for my supporters going up either today or tomorrow. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good deal. But if that's not your thing, you don't want to do an annual or monthly thing, you still want to support, there's a bunch of other ways. First, there is an Amazon wish list, and a lot of that is just entertainment stuff. Because you know what? Sometimes my brain doesn't make enough of the happy chemicals, and so I need like a quick book or something that'll help just inject more happy chemicals into my brain. And that is a great way to help with that. But also there's some stuff for the channel. There's a new monitor, because my monitor is a little shaky. It likes to just not turn on sometimes. There's a sound booth if you want to do that. There's some stuff that's just directly for the channel in there too. There's also a merch store where I sell t-shirts, I sell phone cases, stickers, blankets, towels, pillows, baby onesies, all sorts of stuff. And DM banned for debunking. Hold on, let me get the full thing out here. Banned for debunking misinformation link for $2 says Dapper Alternate donates when Kofi, I don't know, PayPal OnlyFans. So I don't know. I do really value the integration that YouTube gives me, and I don't want to necessarily just abandon that. But I will look into other options. Probably not OnlyFans. I don't know that that's where my audience is going to find me. Unless I already have one and you just don't know. So yeah, I don't know is the answer to that. And of course, if you are not currently in a position to help financially, or it's just something you're not interested in, please like this video, share videos of mine, watch videos of mine. All of those help a whole lot. Trail Mix for $5 says, have you guys seen the hit sequels God's Not Dead 2, 3, and 4? Yes. I hear they're not quite as good as the original, but sequels rarely are. Actually, there was one of them that I thought was better than the original. Because it was like, there was actual, like, moral questions at play, and it wasn't just like, oh, the Christians are all good and the atheists are all evil. There was some actual, like one of the main characters' brother was a lawyer who was an atheist who was helping the church or something, and like it showed there was also it was a little bit better. Is basically what I'm saying. Was one of them was, but yeah, no, they were all terrible. But yeah, I don't think they were all quite as bad as the first one. So yeah, Silent Tetrapod for member for 10 months says I 100% will watch your Dino Fans page. Well, thanks for letting me know. Goodness. All right, we're gonna hit play unless Good Jackson, you got anything else to add about that?
Nope.
All right, here we go.
He hates God because he took everything from me. And you'll find some kind of a hurt, some kind of a knife in the heart of somebody who's been traumatized. What was it that...
What?
Here we go.
What?
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to add in a poll. What do you have more of? We're going to go religious trauma, science trauma. We'll just see. We'll see what happens. It'll be a poll. Vishanti, who's been a member for 28 months and is at the tetrapod level, says, cater to the monster effing crowd with a Mothra. I'll take a drink. Well, I think that's an indication that maybe someone else might be interested in the Dino Fans. Yeah. All right, here we go.
that caused them to loosen their grip on their faith and let somebody take that rod of Aaron away from them. Somebody take the sword.
Carrie Bronson for $5 says, are we doing anything fun for Sal's Bitchmade anniversary? It's coming up. The plan is yes. Yeah, the plan is...
It's been a year?
Hours, 11 minutes, and 40 seconds or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's coming up. So,
True.
yeah, I would like to do something for that. I'm not positive what. I am open to suggestions, though.
Out of their hand, and they're not holding onto the hilt anymore. What did it? I like in the Space Trilogy by C.S. Lewis how the devil tempted the Eve on that planet, and it took weeks and weeks of constant long discussions, not a 20-minute talk. Oh, well, then I'll just eat the forbidden fruit. No, that's probably not how it happened. It's this long...
So it's probably not how it happened in the Bible? Got it. Just taking a drink for that. Like, the entire point of young Earth creationism is an attempt to be overly literal with Genesis, and here he is just like, yeah, but nah. Like, oh, okay. Dutch Tunicate Official for $2 says, where's my turtle trauma option? Turtles would never give you trauma. Come on, man. Turtles are too nice for that. Silent Tetrapod for $10 says, only science trauma I have is seeing how the wrist bones twist when you rotate your forearm. Yeah, okay, that's fair. I have a little bit of science trauma from botfly larvae. Not personally, but just that they exist is like, oh, God. DM banned for debunking misinformation wing for $2 says, I vote trauma turtle. Is that like a service animal that helps you like overcome trauma? Because that sounds cool. I'm in favor of this, like a therapy turtle. That sounds like a cool idea. I like that. I'm specifically like picturing like a therapy tortoise, right? But like a big Galapagos tortoise, like a regular sized tortoise. And like, you know, you bring it into people's rooms in like psych wards or whatever, and they can, you know, scritch the turtle's carapace and feed it a strawberry or something, and they feel better. I don't know. It would work on me. If I was in a pretty bad place and someone showed up with a tortoise that I could feed, I would be in a less dark place. Let's just say that. What about you, Jackson?
Tortoises are pretty cool.
Yeah. Wouldn't you be cheered up if you could feed a tortoise a strawberry?
That does sound pretty fun. Not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
exactly. Vishanti for $2 says, Turtle Godzilla emotional support turtle. Yes. I'll take a drink. I'm a fan of the emotional support turtle. I think it should be a thing. So, yeah.
Seduction. And so it is with any of us that make a big philosophical or eschatological change, a big worldview change in our life. It usually happens slowly. And if it can play...
Now, here I will agree with Dr. Charles Jackson. I'm going to take a drink. I find that most people who change their religious position do not do so overnight. People who change a core aspect of their, personal philosophic positions, that also tends not to be overnight. I don't know. What do you think, Jackson?
I mean, yeah, as far as I'm aware, it usually isn't.
Okay. Van Dally 1998 for $5 says, reader. They mean Shredder. Okay, Shredder would disagree about turtles not causing trauma. Okay, yeah, but Shredder doesn't count. Shredder deserves it. Mrs. Specksender for $5 says, AIG is a hunk of leg length, 2 lid lifting love levers. Jeez. All right, we'll take a drink for that. Goodness, you guys really are pushing to hit the next poll about avatars, huh? You guys never want to see the just regular old Dapper Dino again. It's all about the crazy avatars that I have. We're really close. All right, here we go.
On shaming you, guilting you, making you afraid.
Who is doing this? Is Neil deGrasse Tyson going out shaming people? I mean, I guess he's shaming flat earthers a bit. So I don't know. It's just a weird thing. By the way, do vote if you would like to, because I do plan on ending the poll relatively soon to see whether or not my audience has, on average, more religious or more science-based trauma. Now, do understand that there might be trauma that's neither. I certainly do have some that's neither, so there you go.
And doubting, singing these little songs. Oh, God, hath God really said? Sounds like an honest question.
It is an honest question. And Eve gave an honest answer. And then the snake gave an honest response when he said, you will not surely die, after Eve said that God had said that they would die on the day that they ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then the snake said, nah, that's not true. The snake was right. That's not what happened in the story. If you want to identify the person who said something that isn't true in that story, it's God.
Hath God said? That's really an accusation. It's not an innocent question.
Yeah, it's an accusation in that it was a true accusation, right? Because it wasn't true what God had said. It didn't happen. God said, X will happen if you do Y. Eve does Y, so does Adam. X does not happen. It's that simple. If you want to take this story literally, the snake is telling the truth and God is lying. I don't know. I would think that might be a good theological reason to be iffy about the literalness of the story of Adam and Eve. Fits of Rage for $2 says, is Neil deGrasse Tyson in the room with you, Pat Jackson? With an AIG as a bag of dicks emojis. So we'll take a drink for that. Thank you very much. Good through 3 for $2 says, shame and fear. Oh, you mean religious trauma? I mean, that happens a fair bit. Yeah.
Courtroom lawyers do things like that all the time. How is this person persuaded? And more importantly, how were they hurt? How were they hurt? Jesus seemed to always.
Why is the assumption that everyone who disagrees with you is hurt by something?
I don't know, but I seem to have hit the wrong button.
And it was impossible to be careful enough with compromising Christians, though. Okay, I'm sorry, Chris. You go on ahead now with the next thing you needed to do.
I think it's crashing.
Very pertinent.
That's unfortunate. All right. Well, so Jackson, why don't you talk a little bit about the last thing that we were just showing while I try to get back to that.
Oh, that it's always someone is hurt, and that's the God's not dead thing again, right? Because the professor lost his mom. She had cancer or whatever, and so he's like, "Aha! I hate God for taking my mom."
My friend,
But the question was not about just becoming an atheist, because as we said earlier, that's obviously not something you have to do. You can just be right about science. You don't have to be an atheist. Like, that's a thing.
Yep. And our poll has... I'm just closing our poll. I was about to say, our poll has ended, as if it wasn't me who ended it. Yeah, okay. I'm going to use the active voice here because I'm not like a journalist reporting on a cop shooting someone. So I can use the active voice. What do you have more of? Religious trauma was 76% and science trauma was 23% with 59 votes. Which, yeah, I think that's a pretty reasonable conclusion, right? I don't know of too many people who've been directly traumatized as a result of learning science, but I do know a lot of people who've been traumatized as a result of things that happened to them in various religious institutions. Now, that is not to say that everyone I know who's affiliated with a religion has trauma in their lives as a result of that affiliation. I, for one, really don't have any significant religious trauma that I can think of. Now, I probably got away easy, being that it was a young earth creationist church and whatnot. But, like, yeah, I don't remember any specific times where I remember, like, being traumatized. I remember some things where I was like, I don't really get what's happening right now, and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I do remember some times when people were a bit abrasive towards me as a result of things that I did or believed. But I mean, people are dicks. That doesn't really, to me, rise to the level of trauma in my circumstance. That's not me trying to belittle your circumstances, which are different from mine. Carrie Brownston for $25 says, donating more than usual as a price for derailing the conversation and for making a suggestion. Jackson, would you consider a video on what you personally would expect to see from a design world? What would be such evidence? That would be an interesting video. Would you?
Well, I've given this answer many times. I mean, we talked about we did a video on suboptimal design a while back, which we talked about that. The typical example I give is it'd be really, really easy to see the different Barrowmans if they all had different genetic material.
Yeah.
Like humans have DNA, chimps have an RNA genome. Monkeys have a QNA genome. Something different for every single organism. That'd be really nice, but obviously we don't have that.
Dark Law Dragon for $2 sends Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah. So we'll take a drink. Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to see if we were back roughly to where we were.
You have to go back and untwist the twistings,
Not quite far enough.
All things are pure. And you've been convinced to lower your defenses of somebody who's been traumatized. What was it?
Okay, we're back.
That caused them to.
And for $20, Strawberry Vein comes in and says, I pointed out the snake thing to a friend once and nearly shattered her faith, but her father-in-law came in with an apologetics book and told her a bunch of insane extra-textual made-up stuff to make her feel better. Yay. I mean, I honestly don't think the fact that the snake is telling the truth needs to be something that shatters someone's faith, unless you're someone like who has to take the Bible like young earth creationists do, right? That is not the typical hermeneutic principle that has been used in Christianity throughout history, even in even within Protestantism, right? The fact that it is part of the reason that so many people end up leaving Christianity. And I say this on the basis of the people who have interviewed about leaving young earth creationism, most of whom left Christianity, and most of those had as part of that realizing that young earth creationism just was not actually true. But the thing is, you don't have to do that to be a Christian. If Christians care about keeping people in the church, they could start with just not being science denialists. Or at least, if young earth creationists care about keeping people in the church. Because I'm sure there are many Christians who are not science denialists who also care about keeping people in the church. So I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush when it comes to Christianity, because Christianity is a gigantic thing with many, many people, all of whom are different, and with many, many different versions, all of which are different. So, yeah. Strawberry Vein says, that wasn't my intention either. I was still a young earth creationist at the time. Well, that's extra interesting. Huh. I don't know too many young earth creationists who would acknowledge the fact that the snake is telling the truth the entire time. Yeah. Now, you might say that, like, well, maybe the snake is lying by omission by not mentioning that, like, Adam and Eve will be ejected from the garden and the earth will be cursed and all that. Okay, I'd be willing to entertain a lie by omission, but the actual things directly stated by the snake, all true. And yes, a lie by omission is still a lie.
Loosen their grip on their faith and let somebody take that rod of Aaron away from
Yes.
them. Somebody take the sword out of their hand, and they're not holding onto the hilt anymore. What did it?
I don't know. I never had to worry about that in my
the
upbringing because I was never a young earther.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of the problem is that, you know, he is still to some extent conflating rejecting young earth creationism with rejecting evolution. Now, to be fair, that is in large part because Circle's Face's question was about a particular circumstance in which both things happened. So I can't fault Bad Jackson too much for conflating those things, but it really isn't the same thing. Because I also have interviewed people who are former young earth creationists who are in fact still Christians. So both things are possible.
Space Trilogy by C.S. Lewis, how
And we're back
the
to that.
devil tempted the Eve on that planet, and it took weeks.
Just call it Venus, man. I believe it was actually called Paralandra in the books, but it's Venus. You can just call it Venus. Because these books were written at a time when it was thought reasonable that the other planets in the solar system, at least Venus and Mars, could be inhabited by, like, Earth-like life. So, yeah, just call it Venus, man.
And weeks of constant long discussions, not a 20-minute talk. Oh, well, then I'll just eat the forbidden fruit. No, that's probably not how it happened. It's this long seduction. And
Oh, yeah, we
so
were
it
here
is with
already.
any of
Oh, well.
us that make a big philosophical or eschatological
We'll
change,
skip ahead a little bit.
a big little songs. Oh, God hath God seem to always know what to say to someone who is traumatized. The woman at the well had been traumatized. Truly, she was a woman of ill repute in her town. The other women wouldn't have anything to do with her.
I'm sorry, is Charles Jackson currently arguing for not traumatizing people who don't fall in line with his particular sexual mores?
Dapper, I'm having a little bit of trouble seeing the screen.
That may in fact be because I didn't share it. Like an idiot.
There we go. No, you're not. There you go. Okay, all right, got it.
I'm a professional. But yeah, when talking about the woman at the well, right? So the thing is that, you know, Jesus points out that she says something about her husband. I don't remember I can't quote it to you, right? And then Jesus says, "You have no husband." And then I think it's like 4 or something, like you've had 4 or something like that. I don't remember the exact number, maybe it was 3. And the man you have now is not your husband. Basically calling her out for not adhering to the sexual mores of the time and place that she was living in. And Charles Jackson is apparently against treating people differently as a result of violating what he thinks of as his sexual mores, which, one, I don't think that's actually his position, but if it is, I mean, good for him, because it's not really his business what other people get up to. Yeah. It turns out you can be, like, not interested or even grossed out in the things other people are into, and you don't have to treat them badly as a result of that. That's a thing you can do. Yeah. That's a thing. Like, there are definitely people who are into things that I'm just like, nope, don't get it. Wouldn't do that. That doesn't mean that I'm a dick to them. Cool, isn't it?
It's pretty neat.
Yeah. All you have to do is just say, okay, I'm not interested, and then you just move on, right? It's the same thing with basically all sports ball. I don't care. I'm not going to tell you not to watch it, though. You want to watch as much sports ball as you want? Go for it. Have fun. I just don't care.
Heard sermons on the circumstances of why she was getting water later in the day when the other women had already come earlier in the day.
Probably because she didn't want to be harassed by people like Charles Jackson. Because I want to remind you, right? Charles Jackson is affiliated with young earth creationist organizations who absolutely would harass you if you were outside of their narrowly defined acceptable sexualities. They absolutely will. So if you're having sympathy for the woman at the well, what you're telling me is that you're not okay with the behavior evinced by people in the same shoes as Charles Jackson is. And with Charles Jackson saying that, I don't know what to tell you, right? Because he's in favor of the same people who would, if they could, reinstate, like, the Texas sodomy law.
why she, a half-breed Jew, a Samaritan, and a woman, and Jesus would dare to talk to her, and then she got uppity with him. Oh,
I'm not sure that's how I would describe it. Also kind of cringy, but okay.
our ancestor, dug this well, and Jesus says, yes, I know you're part Jewish. I know you and I are both descended from Abraham. And he went.
That would have been the case even if she were just completely Samaritan. I'm going to take a drink. We're going to talk about Samaritans. Okay, so first, Samaritan is an exonym. They call themselves the Torah observers or the Torah followers. So I want to acknowledge the fact that it is a somewhat problematic exonym that has been used as a pejorative on this community. However, it is the almost exclusive way in which they are referred to in other languages other than when they're speaking amongst themselves in like Aramaic and Hebrew and whatnot, or in some cases Arabic. Second, the Samaritans' own account of their own history is that they are a group of people who were left behind in what's now areas like modern-day Israel and to some degree maybe in Jordan. And that they continued to follow the teachings and laws of Moses throughout what in other parts of the world you might call things like the Babylonian exile or whatnot. And they have their own version of the Torah with their own version of the Hebrew script. And it is very much in line with the Torah that you get in the Masoretic text, which is the main Hebrew text that we base our ideas off of the Hebrew scripture on. But it is not identical. There are some differences. For one thing, there is no idea of a temple to be built in Jerusalem. Instead, they have a spot for sacrifice on Mount Gerizim. To this day, they still practice the animal sacrifices called for in their version of the Torah, which are more or less the same. They still celebrate pretty much all of the same holidays as Jews, so they with the exceptions of they don't celebrate like Purim or Hanukkah, but they'll celebrate they'll celebrate Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. They'll celebrate Sukkot, these various things. Now they have their own traditions about how they celebrate these holidays. They don't line up exactly with modern Judaism. They do not consider themselves to be members of modern Judaism, nor does most of modern Judaism consider them to be Jews. However, they are recognized in a lot of different Jewish writings as being closer to the Jews than just people who have no association with Moses and Abraham. And they are currently an endangered ethno-religion. There are fewer than 1,000 of them existing in the world. They do not currently accept converts, although there is a group of people in Brazil, mostly a collection of former Karaite Jews and some religiously unaffiliated people who are interested in Samaritanism, who are attempting to convert. They sent one of their priests over there not that long ago to meet up with them, and they said that they were faithfully observing the Torah, but they still are not sure what to do with that fact. And they have as much of a claim to being descended from Abraham as modern Jews are. Now, Abraham didn't exist. That's one of the things I want to put out there. There was no historical Abraham. However, the ancestry of the people referred to as Samaritans is linked to the ancestry of the people in the area who are antecedents to modern Jews. They have shared ancestry, they have shared linguistic heritage, they have shared cultural heritage, and shared religious traditions. So I just want to put that out there because it's a very little known and often misunderstood group of people, and I want to help clear that up. And also, I think their version of the Hebrew alphabet is really cool. So yeah, I just like it from an aesthetic standpoint. Not that I don't think Hebrew block letters are cool. I also like them. They're both really cool. And there you go. Strawberry Vein for $10 says, I was just getting serious about science proves the Bible at the time, and I was reading Genesis like 500 times and only asking more questions if you wanted more context for that conversation. That actually does sound interesting. Yeah, it's always an interesting situation when you start reading the Bible and realizing that it doesn't seem to say what your tradition says it does. Yeah, there's a lot of tension in that. All right, well, I'm going to get off my soapbox about the Samaritans. Jackson, you have anything you want to add about the Samaritans?
I do not. Okay. Sorry.
I do want to point out that they have been legally recognized as a body of Israelites by the the government of Israel, which granted them a whole bunch of extra rights that they otherwise wouldn't have had, which, one, good for them, but two, also, hey, State of Israel, maybe don't have ethno-religion-based citizenship statuses where some of your citizens are lower-class citizens as a result of not being part of the right ethno-religion. I don't know. Maybe you should treat all your citizens equally. What am I talking about? It's
Crazy world.
It's literally an ethno-state. They're not going to do that anytime soon.
On with it, but what had traumatized her? Maybe it was the generations of hatred of the Jews,
or you know, the whole lifetime of people judging her for her various choices in her love life. I don't know, maybe you shouldn't do that to people there, Charles Jackson. How about that? I'm not even asking that he accept other people's love and sex lives. I'm just asking that maybe just don't be a dick about it if you recognize that as causing trauma. I feel like it's a pretty modest ask.
Towards her, a half-breed, a Samaritan, a half-Jew, that her ancestors had mingled with the uncircumcised Philistines, you know.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so we're gonna take a drink. Hey, fun fact. Both the Jews and the Samaritans had all sorts of instances of intermarriage with various members of Gentile nations. And while it was a slur that was used by Second Temple Jews against Samaritans, it was no more true of the Samaritans than it was of the Jews. So Charles Jackson just uncritically accepting this as a historical fact that the Samaritans had some significant influx of non-Israelite ancestry that the Jews in the Second Temple period didn't have, it's just nonsense, right? Here's this thing about people. All right, Jackson, let me know if this is a surprise to you.
Okay.
People like to get together with other people, and sometimes babies happen, and whether or not there are taboos about, you know, having sex or getting married outside of their ethnic group, people do it anyway. And they always have. And they always will. What do you think? Is that surprising to you?
I mean, it jives with what I've heard.
Yeah. Libido and romance don't usually actually care that much about the local taboos against ethnic mixing. I mean, the very fact that there had to be miscegenation laws in the United States means that otherwise people would have been doing even more interracial marriages than they were actually doing, which was already a not inconsiderable amount, even with the anti-miscegenation laws. You don't normally need to make a law about something no one is doing, right?
That is true.
Yeah. So, yep. It's almost like people just don't always follow those rules.
And that hatred, maybe she was traumatized by that. Maybe that's what drove her to an immoral life, and maybe then that.
I see. She was only doing what you consider immoral lifehood things because of the racism. I mean, I guess. I don't know. Dr. Dino for $5 says, tune into one of these for the first time in 4 months. Started off with a line about foreskin. It's good to be home. How's it going, my fellow Dino? Oh, it's going pretty well over here. I'm finally more or less out of the cluster headache from Monday, so that's always good.
We made it worse that she was now looked down upon even by other Samaritan women. And what was it? Jesus knew. He went right to it. You know, if you knew who I was, you'd ask me for water, you know. And yes, you're right, but you can worship God in spirit and truth. You know, Jesus went right for what was wrong with the person. You know, show me a penny. You know, yeah, you're right.
That's from a different story, the show me a coin, but okay.
Right, we should stone her just on one condition.
That's a third story. What? The adulterous woman, the woman at the well, and the question about, you know, paying taxes are 3 different stories. Not the same story. Oh my goodness, I'm taking a drink. I can't even keep track of the Jesus stories at this point. Wow.
You know what? Why don't you sell everything you've got?
Now we're at a fourth story. Let's take another drink. I don't know what's happening anymore. We're just going to go through the Gospels, I guess. Just, mention every story. Vishanti says all women are sex workers to Bad Jackson. I mean, I'm not going to say that that's necessarily what he said or would think, but I wouldn't rule it out either.
Give it to the poor and then follow me. He knew what was wrong with every person he met. He knew what their pain was, their hurt was. How were they damaged? How were they broken? What did they need? He offered them exactly, and come and follow me. Deny yourself and follow me. And some people did out of their own recognition of their poverty. But, and I say all that, Chris, to answer this. The only way to minister to someone who has fallen from the faith or still claims to be a Christian but has fallen from biblical literalism, biblical authority, biblical word.
I like the use of the claims to have fallen away, because now we're getting into that, well, maybe they were just never really a Christian in the first place. Which is, I mean, it's just so much copium. That's all that is, right? That's just huffing some cope right there. Like,
Yeah.
People abandon my religion. It's okay. They were never really part of my religion in the first place. Oh, I fixed it. Yeah, okay. Cool.
Worldview and gone to a secular or a theistic evolution worldview.
I'm sorry, is he just saying that theistic evolution is just as bad, according to him, as just completely abandoning Christianity? Like,
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, AIG does really hate, like, biologos. They hate them.
I would say that in some cases they seem to hate them more than they hate, like, just regular old scientists.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure the reason is, like, they can say, oh, well, atheists are already lost. They're on their own. But the theistic evolutionists are the one helping them. They're leading people astray within the church. So that's why we have to fight them even harder.
I see. They're the wolf in sheep's clothing, huh?
Right.
Got it.
Is to do just what Jesus did. Jesus said, I work as my Father worked. Jesus, I am certain, did his ministry nothing on his own initiation. He was showing us how it's done. The Comforter, who would teach you all things, guide you into all truth, remind you of the things that I have shown you, would draw all men to me, would convict the world of sin. Jesus said that when you're brought before the...
All right, man, this is way too much Bible stuff. I don't care anymore. Skipping ahead a little bit.
Should I be in gentle mode? Jesus always knew when to say you lost.
Okay.
As a little kid, their hamster died. Hey, how do I do this? What do I do to help them? And they're crying on your shoulder.
I thought he was getting close to the end of the answer.
No, I think this might actually just be it for us. I think we might end up closing up at this point, because there's only, like, 7 minutes left, and I think he's just going to continue the whole time preaching about how that person was probably never a real Christian anymore, and how what you need to do is find out whatever problem they have in their life and fix that, which, by the way, is literally the tactic used by Scientology to dupe people into joining them by giving them a personality test and then finding the thing that you think is their problem, their big problem, and say, well, Scientology can help with that. So I don't super like the fact that Charles Jackson's idea for how to win people back to the Lord is just Scientology recruitment tactics.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
And if you're very honest when you shoot up that prayer, God will drop down and answer.
Yeah, put that prayer right in my veins. I'm going to shoot up that prayer.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, I'm taking a drink for shoot up that prayer. Charles Jackson is just mainlining prayer, everybody. He's hardcore.
To you. Do this. It's true when you're debating an evolutionist, when it's gonna was one of them. They're easy.
Goodness.
Man of God. But don't, Jesus.
No, this is it.
very much for taking the time.
Let's hear the last bit from Circle Face.
Dr. Jackson, thank you so much for that beautiful and encouraging message about the Holy Spirit.
Was it? Was it though?
It was just a bunch of preaching that didn't really answer the question. But okay. Or maybe it did, and we just missed it because we got really bored of just Charles Jackson shotgunning Bible stories at us.
Yeah.
That's all it was, right? It just evolved into just like, remember this time in the Gospels when Jesus did this thing? Aha! Remember when he did this other thing? Ha! Like, yeah, I've read the Gospels many, many times. I don't know. I was thinking that maybe you could point out, like, well, here's the scientific evidence that I would use to support my contention, since apparently they decided to reject young Earth creationism on an evidentiary basis. Like, no, that didn't happen. What actually happened was they had some kind of trauma about, like, racial stereotyping or something, and that's why they left the church, because that makes sense. Oh, okay.
And thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure and joy.
Was
And
it?
to our listeners,
Oh,
thank
that's
you
us.
very much for taking the time to learn with us on current topics in science.
I feel like that didn't happen actually.
I mean, hopefully it did for our audience, because we were able to explain some scientific errors. But yeah. I'm taking a drink for that one. I do like his Stegosaurus, though. I'll give him that.
Where scientific discoveries are examined in light of the origins issue. You can find Dr. Jackson's biographical information.
Now he's just doing a commercial. All right, so
we did it.
We did it. So a few things. One, this is not our normally scheduled time for Jackson with Jackson. But normally, if we were to follow the normal schedule, Jackson, you would have been here on the second day of Christmas.
Dang Christians with their holidays.
Yes. But I believe that despite not being a Christian, you do still do festivities on the first day of Christmas.
Yeah, I get roped into holidays. There is only one holiday that I celebrate of my own volition.
Oh.
February 12th.
Which one is that?
Charles Darwin's birthday.
Ah, yes. Okay. Darwin Day, as it's called.
Yes.
What was I going to say? Christmas.
So we changed the date that we do Jackson with Jackson on.
That is going to be a Kent with Bent instead of a Jackson with Jackson. Also, Jackson, when we started today, was the sun up?
No.
So we would actually be here on the third day of Christmas, because as we all know, the liturgical day in Christianity starts at sundown. Everyone clear on that?
Of course. I mean, yeah.
Christmas starts at sunset, December 24th. So,
nice.
Yeah.
I should use that line of argumentation to open my presents early.
I mean, go for it if you want. It's still not Christmas morning, though. It's Christmas evening or Christmas night. So, you know, whatever.
But yeah, you're right. It was gets dark at like 3 p.m. now. That's fun.
Oof. Yeah, that's rough. Okay, so I want to put that out there. That's what's the deal is there. So let's take a look at what's coming up tomorrow at the same time as this show on my other channel, Top Hats Off. We should be continuing the Power Rangers tabletop RPG. That's assuming that we have everyone there. Currently, I'm expecting one absence. And if there is another one, we probably won't play. But I'm not expecting one, so expect us to play. Then on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be premiering the first episode of a new series. This one it's called It's Time for Biblical Geocentrism, Batty Bodie's Dinosaur Delusions, which is about a talk given by Bodie Hodge, Ken Ham's son-in-law, and occasional speaker for Answers in Genesis. It will be a 4-part series. The first part is right at that time I told you. And then the plan right now is for a Dapper Journal Club on the 16th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, in which we will be going over a response to the paper that we went over for the first Dapper Journal Club. So I would encourage everyone to rewatch that episode. It was about Gabriella Haynes and her paper on Is Archaeopteryx a Bird? A number of young Earth creationists have responded in the Answers Research Journal, and they are giving her some pretty serious pushback. So we're going to take a look at that, and if we have time, we might look at her pushback against them, which, spoiler alert, doesn't really bother to even address some of the major problems that they brought up. So I would consider it to be woefully inadequate. But then again, I'm not a young Earth creationist, so maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about. So that is what's coming up in the next week or so. Then the next Tuesday should be a a Matt with Maddie. So that is currently the plan, is Matt with Maddie next Tuesday, a week from today. So Maddie from Science Side Up will hopefully be joining us as we take a look at the vast intellect of Uncooked Matthew, aka Raw Matt. So with that, everybody, if you are interested and you are a channel member or a patron and you're in the Discord server, I am planning to, shortly after this, go head over there and we're going to watch some Power Rangers Time Force, which is the 2001 season that was in fact censored as a result of other events in 2001 in the month of September on the 11th day, in case you're wondering. So yeah, head over there if you're interested in that. Otherwise, I hope that I see all of you on either tomorrow for Power Rangers or at least on Thursday for the premiere. So thank you very much, everybody. I hope you have a safe night. I hope you have a safe rest of the week, and I will see you hopefully in a day or two. Bye, everybody. Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Benthoven, Philhavara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Denny5252, Adaran Teller, Horseflesh, Ian Chan, Kelvin Brostek Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, Monkey They Them, Robert Carpenter, Sphincter of Doom, Volus, Eta V, and Strawberry Vein. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.